Welcome to the Nioh 2 walkthrough, and I'm just doing a quick episode here to give you guys some advice or some tips that you might not be aware of when it comes to smithing. And I'm going to cover some other content such as stats and whatnot, and a few um, option menu selections that you might want to pay attention to. So I'll start off with the game mode settings, or sorry, the basic game settings. So one of the quality of life additions from Nioh to Nioh 2 is this option here, automatically use acquired locks of hair. I mentioned this in the very first episode of the walkthrough, but I just thought I'd mention it here too, to make sure that people are aware. You can also turn off your headgear here. You've got subtitles there, and there is also if you go into menu settings, you can change the rarity color pattern. So if you're like me, you have difficulty differentiating between the different colors because you're colorblind, then you can set it here to give you the color schemes for the different quality levels that you like. So I've got it set to this one so that it's easy for me to see and kind of differentiate. And so that'll explain why my gear might show up as a different color than your gear does. Now, in terms of gear and equipment, I want to highlight a few quick points here when you're crafting. So you're going to want to be getting basically a set that will advance whatever kind of build you're running. So I'm going to go through the build video probably after this episode and talk to you about my build a little bit, but I'm running one that's dependent on doing damage through ninjutsu techniques as well as onmyo techniques. And so because of that, I've crafted this shinobi set, which comes base with a bunch of ninjutsu power. So that'll make my ninjutsu hit a little bit harder. And then you kind of want to, if you can't get good rolls like this untouched onmyo magic or untouched ninjutsu, then you might as well get defensive stats so that you're a little bit more survivable as you're clearing content. So that's basically what I did. I just did defense and projectile damage taken. If I couldn't get a good roll for something else like untouched ammo, untouched onmyo magic, or untouched ninjutsu. So just when you're crafting this, how do you do that? Basically, when you go into the smith, you have this option called temper, right? And if you temper something, it gives you a choice of different abilities. So you see this ability here that says break, and it's got these two little squares. That means that if you max out the familiarity with this weapon and you have another weapon that also has this, then when you go into soul matching, I could, choosing another set, so I've got an open one here, let's say, and this one was maxed familiar. Actually, I have a couple, I think, that are max familiarities. Let me grab one of those really quick. There we go. All right, so oh no, that's not going to do it. All right, so for this one, for example, you can see that the over on the right, I'm using the Terminus Switchglaive as my base. And I've got this Black Bamboo Kusarigama, which is max familiarity. That means if I use this Black Bamboo Kusarigama, it will transfer this active skill key consumption to my Terminus Switchglaive. And so you can pick and choose what effects that you want to actually transfer over. So you want to keep an eye out when you're vendoring loot and selling for good effects that you want to potentially use later. So for example, this attack bonus heart, right? I've kept that in my storehouse, which is you can get to by hitting L3. You can swap between your item box and your storehouse, and held on to this attack bonus heart because I'll probably use that at some point later. I also have a really good one here, melee damage. So I could transfer melee damage over to Terminus Switchglaive, except for the fact that there's something that is interfering with my ability to transfer that. You'll notice that even though it's not max, or even though it's max familiarity, it's not actually transferring over to this Terminus Switchglaive. And that's because you can only have one of the damage effects active at a time, and certain effects interfere with each other from inheriting. So I would have to actually use a different base if I wanted to transfer over that um, melee damage. I'd have to use a different weapon. So let's see if I can do it on this one, for example. So if I go in and I look for the melee damage, where was the melee damage? Here it is. So I still can't do it. So I've got something interfering there, and it's not the key damage, it's not the imbue corruption, it's not the life drain, so it's the damage bonus enemies defeated. So you cannot transfer over the base melee damage because it's interfering with the damage bonus enemies defeated. But if I have something else that doesn't have a melee damage, let's see if it interferes with this one. So it still is interfering, right? Melee damage versus yokai. So this one, for example, I could transfer it across. So I'll swap over to that and just show you. So that one, if I have Seething Dragon, I could inherit the melee damage, right? So that's basically how that works. I can transfer it over, but you can only inherit effects if you don't have that type of effect already on your weapon. Eventually, you're going to be able to do inheriting with armor as well. But when you're early on in the game, you probably won't have anything that has an inheritable effect for armor. Usually once you get around the level where divine stuff drops, which is the next tier up from what I'm using now, then you can get inheritable effects on the armor at that point. So once the divines start dropping, you should start seeing more of those effects. Otherwise, they're super, super rare. Now, in terms of tempering and crafting and getting the most out of your materials, some people are saying sell your stuff. Some people are saying donate it. What you want to keep in mind is you're going to be forging stuff eventually, and to have the highest chance of getting a good item, you see at the top there are the 4 percentages of different colors. The one all the way to the right is the one that has the highest quality level that I can craft until I'm able to craft divine items. And what you're going to want to do is be able to max that out at 36%. In order to max out that chance at 36%, you need the items that are all the way over to the right. And you'll see I have a bunch of them. And the reason why I have a bunch of them is because I've done two things. The first is I've gone into, every time I have extra items, I can go in here and upgrade the quality, right? So I do this sort of every so often. I'll come in here and craft the highest quality lacquer, highest quality leather cord, and you can upgrade all the way through to get the highest quality. The other thing that I'm doing is I am dissembling, right? And you want to make sure that you dissemble any of these highest quality tier items that you can that you get, because the other stuff you can sell it and you don't get that many crafting materials, and it costs a lot to upgrade the materials like I have been. So what you're going to want to do is basically always dissemble any of these that you're not holding on to for those inheritable effects, and the good inheritables that you'll want. So you'll want to basically all of these blue, for me anyway, because of my menu settings, I'm getting rid of all of these, and I'm going to dissemble them, and they'll give me, that one is not good, nope. And that'll give me sort of a bunch of the crafting materials that I need. Now, actually, I might hold on to this damage bonus, familiarity, and reduced attack. That's a pretty good weapon, so I'm not going to disassemble that. Right, but I'm going to disassemble all the rest because they're all that dark blue color. The highest quality tier that I have right now. Then I'm going to go through the armor and do the same thing. So I'm just going to mark it for disassembling. This is a little bit faster because there are no inheritable effects. So I've got my crafted gear that I'm wearing, and I'm not even bothering to really check any of these to see if I have anything better, because what I'm wearing is good enough. Alright, so that's marked all of the armor and all of the weapons for disassembling. And you'll see I'll get 16 highest quality tamahagane, 12 highest quality wood, 16 ingots, 8 lacquer, 32 leather cords, 16 leather platelets, 44 iron platelets. And you want to always do this with this tier of gear. And I'm going to disassemble them all right now. There you go. And the reason why you want to do that is because that's the most efficient use of that tier of items, because it'll give you the crafting mats so that you're able to craft other stuff later. And for your forging, when you're forging, when you do forge divine gear later, this stuff is going to have an impact on your percentage chance of crafting a divine item as well. So you want to make sure you have tons and tons of this, the highest quality tier of crafting materials as you possibly can get. And it's always a percentage-based chance, but when you have all of your crafting materials of the highest tier, that'll give you the best chance of getting the divine item overall. The other thing that I'm going to talk about really quickly is, and then for the rest of the gear, just sell it. So go into your sell menu, right-click sell all, and then before you sell, really quickly, you might want to check any accessories to see if you got anything good. Like that one's actually not bad. Defense bonus, magic, defense bonus with key bonus. It's a pretty decent one. Luck. So I've got an untouched ninjutsu. That's kind of handy for the build that I'm running. Auto grave recovery. This one will require more skill than I have, but I'm going to hold on to it anyway. And then the rest of it looks like stuff that I can just sell. So going back over here, everything is marked, so I will sell all of that, right? And that's given me a good bit of cash. So the two limiting things in forging new gear and doing tempering and whatnot are the amount of gold that you have and the amount of materials that you have. So this will let you maximize both gold and your crafting materials. Now I'm going to talk about tempering as well really quickly. So taking, for example, this one here, Seething Dragon. If I wanted to change the effects of what I have here, I can go ahead and go in and choose which of these effects that I want and just use an Umbra Sight to get that effect. So I think that active skill break is better than mid attack key consumption. So I'm just going to do that, right? And every time you change it, so if you were to save your game and upload your save to the cloud and check, you'll notice that the pattern of what effects you get each time you change an effect is the same. So you can actually figure out the shortest path to the effects that you want, and then save scum and download your save and then follow that path to get that effect. right? So you can avoid wasting materials that way. And each time you change one of these effects, the other effects that you see available to choose from will change for each of the other ones. So if you're not getting the effect that you want, try changing one of the other effects and see what you come up with, right? So I'm not going to change that one, but I'll illustrate with, what's a good one here? Yeah, I'm not going to use this. So for example, right now we've got Amrita earned on that one as the top choice, break on that one, and high attack key consumption. You'll see if I change one of these, all three will give me different choices. Right? So that's gone to high attack, that's now low attack break, and that one is now gold earned, right? So if you're not getting the effect that you want, try changing one of them, and then you can see, double check what the other options are, and then that'll give you the option to choose something else. And you can really find the most efficient pathway through by making a save first before you start changing things, and then figure out what effects you get in what order as you're changing them, and then you just follow the optimal path through, changing each one in turn. So that's just a few tips to help you get the gear that you want in order to be effective and to not waste materials. So I'm not that far into the game right now. I am only in the second region, basically. I've just gotten to Shadow. I'm still in Soaring for the most part, and I've already got 250,000 gold saved up and hundreds of crafting materials. So I hope that's helpful. I will see you guys back for the next episode, which will be the build that I'm running at this point in the game, which I've found to be fairly effective. So I'll do that video guide next.